In the last video, we talked about operator overloading, and we know that operator overloading is a way to implement polymorphism in Python OOP, alongside doc typing and method overloading and method overriding, which we will see in today's video. Let us talk about method overloading first. With languages like Java and C++, method overloading can be achieved, and method overloading simply means you have multiple methods of same name but either different type of parameters or different return type. In front of you is a code in Java. We have the first add method that takes two numbers as arguments and returns an integer. However, the second add method has the same name as the first one, but it takes three arguments instead of two and returns an integer. So this is method overloading. However, can you do this in Python? Well, in Python, you can't have two methods with the same name, so you can't achieve method overloading in the same way you do in Java or C++, but there is a way to achieve method overloading or to simulate method overloading, and let us see how to do that. Then we'll continue with method overriding. Let us say you have this simple student class. It has attributes like grade 1, grade 2, and student 1 as the student object. Let's create a simple add method inside this student class. So def add, and this add method adds two numbers. So let's say first of all self a and b return, let me say return a plus b. And to call this method, let's use the student or the object. So student1.add, let's say 12 and 13. If I go ahead and print this, we'll get the output, let's say 25. However, can you go ahead and add another argument, let's say 14? Well, of course this won't work because this method accepts two parameters a and b, but you added a third one. So what you need to do here is actually add another parameter and return a plus b plus c this time. But now you are obliged to add three arguments. If you want to add two arguments, this won't work because this method is expected to have c as parameter or argument. So to achieve method overloading in Python, we can use default arguments. So I will say a is equal to none. It is a default argument, as well as for b, I wrote it wrong. So b is equal to none and c is also equal to none. Now I will say if a different than none and b different than none, as well as c different than none. What I will say here, and before I go any further, I'll have a sum variable. So I just created a sum variable, and this sum variable will store the sum of all of those numbers. So a plus b plus c. So why I said a plus b plus c? Because if a, b, and c are not none, that means they have a value, an integer value. That means the user inputted three arguments which are stored respectively in a, b, and c. However, there's a possibility that a is different than none, so a different than none, and b as well, so b different than none. So let's say the user actually inputted two numbers instead of three, so basically the first number will be an argument for a parameter and the second number will be an argument for the b parameter. However, what will be c? Well, c is equal to none because the user didn't mention any value for it, and as default we have c equal to none. So what I'll say here is sum equal to a plus b only, because c is a non-type and we cannot add an integer with a non-type. And if there's another possibility that the user inputs only one number, that means a is different than none. So basically sum will be equal to a, and let's return sum. And now you'll tell me, what if the user didn't input anything? It left the add method blank. So basically a, b, and c are equal to none. What will be the output? It will be 0 because we declared a sum variable and assigned to it the value 0. All of these condition evaluated false, and so it will return sum equal to 0. And now let's try this method. So I don't have anything right now. Okay, we got 0. Let's say I got 12 right here, and I should get 12 actually. Now this time let's say 13, I should get 25, and I got 25. And this time we inputted three arguments, and so we should get 39. And this is kind of a method overloading in Python. Unfortunately, we can't implement method overloading just like how you saw in Java, but this also works. However, if you want to build an effective add method that allows the user to input X amount of numbers, let me just go ahead and delete this, and instead of default arguments, I could use the non-keyworded argument or star args. Okay, so this one. And this actually returns for me a tuple. So I could input how many numbers I want, and I have a problem here, how many numbers I want, and it will still allow me to input how many numbers I want. And it will return for me a tuple. So all of these numbers will be stored inside a tuple. And what I will do here is I will say sum equal to 0, and I can iterate through this tuple by saying for I in args, and actually you can change this args name. You can say numbers, and so numbers, and numbers is a tuple. What I can do is say sum plus equal to I and return the sum. And so there it is. Let's see how much this is. So run Python file, and it gives us 86. To achieve method overriding, we need the concept of inheritance. If you need to refresh your knowledge on inheritance, make sure to visit this video, link in the description. First, in the student class, I'll create a method called total, and it will accept self as parameter, and it will say return, or it will return for us self.grade1 plus self.grade2. Okay, and of course if I say student 1 dot and total, it will give me the sum of 80 and 90, which will have, okay, then I forgot to print it, so print, and let me relaunch this method, and we got 170. And now let's go ahead and create another class. Let's say this class will be called salary, and this class salary will have an init method, init, and this init method accepts two parameters, sal1 and sal2 for salary1 and salary2. Self.sal1 is equal to the value of the parameter sal1. And let's say self.sal2 is equal to sal2. So let me create an object of salary. Let's say income1 is equal to salary, and let's say 12k and 13k, okay? Now to achieve method overriding, we need the concept of inheritance. Let's say salary inherits the student class. So to inherit a other class, inside the salary class, I'll say parenthesis and student. So right now, salary class inherits the student. So this is the subclass, and student is actually called the superclass. We know that when a object or a class inherits another class, it inherits all the features of this superclass, like the attributes, grade 1, grade 2 in our case, and methods, like the total method in our case. As you can see here, grade 1, grade 2, and total. So to achieve method overriding, we need to override a method. But which method to override here in our case? And it is the total method. So to override a method, all you need to do is just rename this method inside the subclass, and let's say self. So def total self, and this time it returns self.sal1 plus self.sal2. And as you can see, we overrided the method total. So let's see, or let's say income1 dot total, and it will add 12 and 13. We should get 25k. So it's pretty simple to override a method. You need inheritance, you need to inherit a class, and to override the method of this class, like in our case we have the total method. To override this method, all you need to do is redefine it over here in the subclass and write whatever you want here. It can do whatever you want. And so this is called method overriding. And method overriding is a very popular concept among languages that supports object-oriented programming. Alright, thanks for watching, and thank you for following me in this Python object-oriented journey. If you are in need to refresh your memory on some concepts in OOP, make sure to visit my playlist that stores all my Python object-oriented videos.